Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the government's unpopular moves to cut international aid as not only being a breach of their very clear manifesto promise, but potentially a breach of the law, Conservative law at that. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, the Conservative Party under Boris Johnson, rather tragically, in an act of self-destruction for the country, secured a large majority in the 2019 general election. This means that they are expected to honour all of their manifesto pledges. Now, bear in mind what's in a manifesto. It's not just a list of policies that the party intends to push for in government. Oh, we'd like to do this. No. That is the cast iron promises to the nation. Now, I could go through each of the last four Conservative manifestos and show how they lied. Now, in some ways, I might give David Cameron a bit of a pass on the first one because he didn't secure a majority. In order to govern, he went into coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and it is understood that if you have some manifesto commitments, but you don't have a majority, and they are opposed by your coalition partners or any MPs that are going to provide you with the votes necessary to govern, then you'll have to pragmatically drop them. Okay, absolutely. However, there were some promises made that the Liberal Democrats may have supported. But anyway, that's irrelevant because Boris Johnson absolutely has a large majority. No reason at all for him not to keep his promises. And on page 53 of his manifesto is this promise: we will proudly maintain our commitment to spend 0.7% of GNI on development and do more to help countries receiving aid become self-sufficient. Now, the latter part of that statement is subjective, difficult to pin them down on that one. However, the first part is crystal clear. And note the language. It's not just a promise given as a concession to the sensibilities of the public. Because I get that. I understand that with certain parties you have your core beliefs and your core policies, and this is what you really want to do. But you also understand that there are certain other policies that the country would like. You may not agree. But, so it's something you'd rather not do. But you will do it. You will promise to do this in order to win power. No, they say they will be proud to maintain. They're not just committing to maintain it. They want to maintain it. They're proud to maintain that commitment. Only now they've dropped it. Now, this is bad enough as a breach of the covenant with the voting public. The party seems to be somewhat selective about what they do and do not have a mandate for. So apparently they had a mandate for leaving the EU under the hardest of circumstances because they won the election with 43% of the popular vote, but they don't have a clear mandate to commit to a manifesto promise that has strong cross-party support and represents the overwhelming majority of the voting public. But that's a moral argument, because although I think they need to be had, they do nothing to sway Conservatives these days. Any Conservatives who've ever had a moral compass have been tied in a sack and beaten with sticks. But this move may also be unlawful. Not because it breaks a manifesto promise, they have no legal standing, which is why you should never, ever believe a political promise unless you have very good reason. Them writing it down doesn't mean you hold them to it. And there is never a reason to believe the current Conservative Party leadership, if there ever was with past versions. Blows my mind that people keep voting for the party that knackers the country up so badly that they don't even bother to deny it, but promise that all of a sudden, for no adequately explored reason, they're all going to put it all right again. Boris Johnson, 2019, didn't seem to even bother to hide the fact that all sorts of cuts had been made since the Tories have been in power, all sorts of things had gone wrong, but not to worry, going to put it all right again. Are you? Right then. But on this occasion, it is believed that there is no Commons majority for the international aid budget cut. That means that if this had been voted on and not just pushed through by the government, it would be defeated. There must therefore be quite a few Conservative MPs against this policy, and more than that, they feel strongly enough about it to vote against the party whip. Because There might be any number of policies that Conservative MPs are not happy with, but they will support because they have their own covenant. The party machine gets them elected. In return, they're supposed to vote the way the party leadership tells them to. So you always have a good 100 MPs in a strong government who will just vote whichever way the government tells them to. Of course, voting against the government, when they wish to break a manifesto pledge, is something that all MPs of that party really, you would think, have a duty to do, because that individual MP stood on that manifesto promise, so they are personally breaking their own word by not voting to stop the government doing it. Unless, of course, there is an extremely good reason not to, unless there are genuine circumstances that means you can't do this. And it's sort of part of the basis for this legal advice. Now, a group of Conservative MPs who are challenging this, of course, there are opposition MPs challenging it as well, but, they are of limited power. But Conservative MPs are not happy and they have sought legal advice. A senior QC was commissioned by the group to judge the legality of it. And based on the fact that it's come back as saying, yeah, this is not even remotely legal, they've demanded a vote before the Easter recess. Well, the Easter recess is well underway now, where they've been off for basically a week, and we didn't get the vote. Despite an earlier promises that MPs would get one. The government initially said that MPs would get one. They did not. So I'm presuming that that means a judicial review will now follow. In other words, the government will be taken to court on this matter. Now, according to the legal advice, what is scuppering this is the International Development Act 2015, which sets the target. Now, this particular piece of legislation does allow you to technically miss the target due to circumstances, but it doesn't allow you to actually adopt a deliberate policy of changing it. This would suggest that the government, in order to change it, would need to modify the legislation, which most definitely requires a parliamentary process, including a majority of MPs voting in favour of it. Something that is believed to be spectacularly unlikely. The government are arguing that there's a little wrinkle in the legislation that allows them to blame current financial turbulence, which actually is largely self-inflicted, remember, and allow them to miss the target on that basis. The problem is, from my point of view, is that the government pleading poverty is a bit rich when they don't seem to have cut back on raiding the public coffers for their rich mates. Quite how a government that can waste £2.6 million, was it, on that gaudy media room, which looks way worse than the one that already existed. It's a downgrade on what they had, has no better facilities. How do they get to claim that they need to watch the pennies? But after everything else lately, I'm not sure I'm going to believe the government marking their own homework over a former director of public prosecutions, not the Labour leader this time, but the QC that was a peer now, who was engaged by the Conservatives, who is acting on behalf of, well, pretty much every political party in Parliament, including, as I say, a number of Conservative MPs. And this move by Boris Johnson was mind-bogglingly stupid as well. I mean, sure, he gets away with it in the media because they'll just tell people that essentially it's our money being given to foreigners in an act of charity, but we need to look after our own now. It is not an act of charity. Yes, you hope it goes to the vulnerable, that is the idea, as a charitable donation would do. But international aid is given in national interest. As Tobias Ellwood, who's one of the senior Conservatives pushing to change the policy back to the manifesto promise, has said, not this isn't a quote, but this is the words of what he basically means, the beneficiaries of these cuts will be the various paramilitary organisations in some of the more unstable parts of the world. He listed off a few. The vacuum created will be filled up by China and Russia. He said that as well. I mean, they're not exactly philosophically aligned with us. So basically, we remove our own influence. Global Britain again, everyone. We remove our own influence from important areas of the world and allow China and Russia to enhance their own. Boris Johnson will bang on about how we will commit more international aid proportionally than other Western countries. Yes, by and large we do. The fact that other countries are also stupid in not doing more does not excuse the damage we will do if we try and be more like them in this regard. He's also said that we will restore the target as soon as the economic situation allows. But, you know, you can do that for anything, can't he? Given that his core policies, his most important policies, are to ensure that we remain economically weak in a state of complete financial chaos, if he can use that argument for this, he can use it to break all of his promises. I mean, Brexit was always going to be damaging to our economy, and the harder the Brexit, the harder the hit. But he's also inflicted upon us the worst economic performance of any advanced nation due to the pandemic. Partly down to the Conservatives just being that crap with the economy, and partly, in all likelihood, because it helps them cover up the damage of Brexit. Almost deliberate in some ways, if not actually deliberate. It's a little bit like being accused of beating someone up. I didn't beat them up. What are these bruises then? Oh, right. So they try and cover up the bruises by stabbing the victim. That's how they seem to be approaching this. The other thing as well, it's all right talking about removing this international aid and then putting it back again. The problem is, when you remove it, is the people who will then do without see it. It's very important to them. That's why we do it in the national interest. It's a way of saying, look, the UK's got your back. You're in a terrible situation. We're helping out here. And that help can be crucial for many people. Then you remove it. They remember that. In their hour of need, quite frankly, their decade or even generation of need, but in their hour of need, we've abandoned them. It's the sort of thing you remember. Then China and Russia step in and go, we'll help you out then. Which is why it's mind-bogglingly stupid. So mind-bogglingly stupid that even some Conservative MPs are aware that it's mind-bogglingly stupid and it reduces our influence in the world when they've already voted to massively weaken our influence as well. But those are my thoughts. I'll wait and see what action follows now. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.